Hi, my name is Nicholas, and I think you probably know that already. But I would like to introduce Michael Ware, who is going to introduce Javier tonight. And I want to announce that this is our final Artists Now lecture talk for the semester. So our next talk is February 6th. So perhaps we'll all see you. Sure. Good. February 6th, we start up again with a new series in the spring. Many of you have seen the calendar that announces all the talks. We've added 2 more, I believe, so we have a full schedule as well for February. And as we speak, the schedule's being decided for next year. So there's a full roster coming next fall and next spring. So the Artists Now program moves onward in a very impressive fashion. So tonight's our last speaker for the semester. Obviously, in my class we have more lecture series, my talks, and so forth as we finish out the semester. But one thing I want my students to pay attention to is I see so much discussion, debate on D12. What is art? How do we define art? Our guest tonight is an artist and a sculptor. Our guest 2 weeks ago, Emmanuel Pratt, artist and a sculptor. Well, that's the point of this course. The point of this course is to show the widest range of contemporary art practices possible. And artists aren't comparing themselves to each other. They certainly aren't comparing themselves to the roster that speaks here. We judge art on its own merits, of what the artist is able to communicate about their life, about the world, about their media. And that's what makes this program interesting. The fact that the art department chooses artists of a diverse range that celebrates their media. And tonight, Ceramics has invited this guest. And before I go forward, the Artists Now Committee puts a lot of work into this program. A lot of work to solicit requests from artists from the department. A lot of work goes on behind the scenes to invite the guests, to set this whole structure up. Yevgenia was a huge part of that committee last year. Hans was. This year, Nathaniel and Christine are taking a huge role of that. Everyone in the art department plays a key role in this. So please, can I have a hand for all the Artists Now folks who made this program It really is a great treasure to have artists speak. We took a commitment from the department to make these series. I remember my experience as an undergraduate at the University of Michigan. The visiting artist was a huge part of my education. So again, come back next fall. Encourage other students to enroll in this course. And students who are enrolled in this class, look at the schedule. Look up the artists online. See artists that might intrigue you and promote the talks and come to the talks in the future. And I see former students here tonight too, people who graduate from UW coming back to see artists talk. So it's a wonderful series. So without further ado, a graduate student, Michael Ware, is going to introduce our guest tonight.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to introduce the artist Xavier Toubes. He was born in 1947 in Coruña, Spain. Toubes worked in an international bank in Spain and England until 1974 when he attended the University of London Goldsmiths College until 1977. In 1977 and 1978, he worked at Wincombe Pottery in Gloucestershire. In 1979, he spent a year in residency at the Seminario de Estudios Cerámicos de Sargentios in Spain. From 1980 to 1983, he attended the New York State College of Ceramics at Alfred University. After graduating with his Master of Fine Arts, he taught in the art department at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill until 1993. In 1989, he became involved in the creation of the European Ceramic Work Center in the Netherlands, and was the artistic director from its opening in 1991 until 1999, when he started teaching at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. It is my privilege to introduce Javier Toubes.
I share all the comments, the invisibility of how to make a project. And I'm very glad that Nicholas used this opportunity to make me part of thanking all the people who, through, I'm sure, very complex organizations and have to create budget, is able to bring artists to a platform or a possibility like this. So thank you very much for being part of that. I have to start somewhere, and I just have this Peterson here. But maybe because it was an introduction and it was a biography, a short biography, you probably sense that, that I've been in different places and very different countries and different cultures and doing many different things. You mentioned, and I always forgot, I used to work in a bank. I have to work since I was very, very young. And I'm from Spain, and I was very, very involved in politics. And I was very young then. This is 1967. I was 19. And at that time, it was very clear, or we thought it was very clear, taking positions. And those positions were very complicated, but the world was very different, and some of us thought that we could change the world. And I was somewhat part of that kind of tradition of understanding modernity, or understanding art, or how to be in the world. So that is part of my constituency, as it is part of my biography. Can you hear me okay? Yeah? Okay.
Maybe a little higher.
Can you hear me? So it's not, I mentioned my biography with certain suspicion because I'm not sure if it explains anything, but because I'm not sure how or at least how I do what I do most of the time. But let's say that I make things that we have intention, that they are made with material, and that material has a resonance that has been going through time. I'm very aware of that, in this case ceramics. That sense of globality or presence and is very obvious to me as a medium and as an object. At the same time, that familiarity of the thing, as ceramics and as, let's say in this case, has been often a problem because one of the evolution of modernity is precisely at one point getting rid of certain language, and here I am once again emphasizing a certain sense of, let's say, humanity or sense of labor, or arrival at a certain understanding of meaning. But that's what I was doing at the time. This is to start somewhere. I mean, this is 1984 or 85, and I did many of these pieces. I worked a lot. I thought I'd make 400, and they're very large. So labor, work, I like. I learn by doing. I learn by doing and doing with others who also are doing. So that understanding that I do by practice, but I know others are doing around. So at times that becomes community, or becomes a way to figure out how he or she does it, so that will transfer to me. Somebody is present. And I think that is very much part of ceramics, and it's something that always was very intriguing to me. So that idea that what I do, or what we can do, if it has a certain sense of care or attention, it communicates, and it's contemporary consequently, because it has purpose. So that is continues to be present. I introduce this because from now on I'm going to say very much, but I think that there are a number of elements which could be here already, which I think will appear over and on and on and on. So that sense of repetition is going to be, or persistence, or insistence, or how intention and attention comes close. A certain ability or intention to have something which is universal, we all know what it is, but at the same time, I can talk purely in terms of abstraction, or color, or scale, so formal elements, could be simply a way to enter into this. So they are big heads. If I turn it upside down, they are big containers, so very colorful containers. Or, they have that sense of, we call it sometimes the stuff of humanity. They have that sort of persistence of appearance or presence. I was, and all this in good and all kinds of other, because at least to me, when I make something, rarely is because of one intention, or at least not any longer. At that time, I think it was. I believe. I don't anymore necessarily that what I do is what I want to do, and it has become much more complicated. So I definitely do art about art, and that was very different 20 years ago as it is now. So what I'm saying with this is I think that we navigate through many different systems of knowledge and understanding, not only what I do, but what other people do, and how do I relate to all of it. I'm going to show work. But this has been for a time, and actually they appear with a very specific reason. There was a political event in '83, and I just thought that this was one way of creating a precedent that somewhat responded to create some energy. I thought it was important on that point. This is a little bit later. That idea of the studio or the place where I practice becoming more theatrical, more aware of space, is painting, the sculptures or objects. Sometimes the objects have words, like air. The poetics of my practice is more ambiguous. So the studio is a place where I practice, but also where I try to figure out things. So I paint, I sculpt, I look, I draw. And then how the studio is a possibility of display or installation. It has theatrical possibilities. All that starts to become more conscious. Then this idea that making an object, as you probably noticed up to now, where modernity, archaic, universal, primitive, raw, direct, it's all trying to mingle. So I try to navigate many different hats at the same time. And then that sort of commitment to ceramics, the possibility of ceramics as a contemporary notion of art, and knowing that it has been always around us, and knowing also that ceramics has always been popular. By that I mean not only popular in terms of understanding, but by the people. And that has always been very important to me, and has been everywhere, in every country, in every strata. Ceramics has had a point. At times purely functional, but very often not only that. So that intrigued me, that interests me very much. And that's why actually one day I left the Peck, where I was working, because after work I was very young. And I became very fascinated. This is 1973, 74, when it's the beginning of ecology. There is a book which appears at that time, which is called The Small is Beautiful, and it's what we now call ecological movements, etc. I'm part of that kind of growth, if you wish, of thinking. Anyway, but here I am. This is now in 89, around 99, I'm teaching Chapel Hill. And anyway, there is a story, but I go to Holland and I initiate and I funded and became the artistic director of this place, which is the most innovative research center for ceramics in every notion of art, design, and the idea is to create a place which is completely different, that it doesn't pretend to get rid of tradition, but arrive at using the most innovative technology. And this is new, meaning that all this technology is extraordinarily efficient. At that time, we already were recycling old materials, including plaster. It is extremely efficient in terms of energy and ecological. And we have 16 studios. We invite artists from all over the world. We pay artists from all over the world to come here. We don't ask anything. There is no galleries, there is no talk, there is no discourse. And we have 16 rooms. So the idea was to create a place where creation could work at every most basic and most sophisticated manner. This is the kiln room. Then there are studios who will run. So I became this person who has to negotiate with authorities and with politicians to be able to support us. We support the artists, as I mentioned, we bring artists from all over the world, which is a tremendous complex organization. And so I became this other inventor, this creation now becomes more socialized and politicized, if you wish, because I have to live with all these other strata of society to make this work. I was there for 10 years, and now the place is still functioning, but a little bit different. But anyway, so this idea of the artist then taking other, let's say, intentions or responsibilities in society, and how I also try to figure out how to do it. So I continue, the work at times becomes much more material or simple. This idea of, let's say the still life appears and disappears, and size changes from small to intimate to large to, there's a very, very large pieces where, this idea of the vessel container continues to appear. Objects without description. Very intimate, very small objects at times, and then other ones which have, a very different kind of presence or appearance or reference. So, in a way, there is an intention not to fix not only what I do, but what I am. And that ambivalence is something that, somewhat I think, keeps me, I don't know if it is nervous or young or not knowing. Not knowing is something that intrigues me very much because it implies that I have a future. The body, or the memory of the body, of the sensuousness, of materiality, skin, landscape, light, architecture. Architecture as a place where the body and the mind can stay. These are very large pieces. So there is an intrigue with, that sort of object or sculpture, but also with materiality. That material, this is porcelain, which is totally absurd to make porcelain at this scale, and of course to move. So chance, because I take a lot of risks materially, this goes to very high temperature and it starts to move, and then that part of the motion and the kiln is part of the piece. So that chance is a partner, and a very close and dear partner. Those are the pieces, the previous pieces before they go into the kiln, and as you can see how they're fine. So that idea of process as risk-taking, knowledge of material, but at the same time figuring out what if. At times, it's just purely investigation of color, but color, space, or light. Those are large slabs, very thick. That fascination of alchemy, after all, those are, chemicals, and how that they can able to, bring to the mind many other possibilities of landscape, growth, light. Very large pieces. This is, I'm going to show you now a number of pieces in a very large exhibition in 2008, where I photographs, ceramics, paper, painting, there are very large photographs on the wall. The photographs are windows of very, very sort of expensive commodities, which now we take for granted, but they are all mainly from the Prada and Coach, all these extremely highly sophisticated and expensive commodities that all the cities in the world seem to have. And I went with a very cheap camera and I photographed them in London and New York. And that sort of skews to abstract what implies commodity power. And then it becomes just simply an abstraction, and I start playing with them and make them into this flat kind of information. Those are very, very large, 2 meters high photographs. So the idea then is that I at times there's this need to perform or to habitate interests in very different concepts or notions. This is one of the first. Obviously there is an attention to display or installation, where there are clearly objects which have been made and have taken a long time to make, and they have gone through processes. But then the processes very often sort of play or fight with the form. They are more about discoloration or disintegration of color, and sort of very shiny and colorful. The forms tend to have this archaic or primitive, so there's this contradiction. But nevertheless, the installations often, they tend to have this calm, sort of quiet, light. So there is this mundane and sacred stuff going on. And then there's very large digital, which again, once again, I think this idea of matter or material disintegrating, that seems to be quite consistent. I have a very, very small studio. I mean, I can actually work anywhere, but you know, if you try that, my studio is about, you know, it's about not very much larger than this. Because I never had a studio, because I moved constantly from one place to another. So it's a contradiction, you know, in many ways, because I make a lot of work, and I make tremendous amount of work. But I like to work whenever I want to. So I like to work at home now. So I have a very small space. And so I never see the work that I do until actually exhibit. So that degree of risk or the degree of not knowing is very tricky to me. So for instance, this place which I've done, 50 place, I never saw them. They were put there. So that display then becomes a poetic instant haiku situation. So that is very tricky. But also is that ability to suspend judgment. So I didn't know they were good or not good, but now it's too late, they're up. So it's that intriguing possibility of when you conquer certain power, I can have a very good exhibition in a very good museum, I can get away with it. So it's something that as artists, you know, how we conquer spaces, or how we display our possibilities, you see, and you learn that by getting involved in it, by engaging yourself in that kind of risk, or that kind of understanding of how the structures of society work. The most, you know, it is a visual statement, but it's very, very specific. I mean, and this is again part of my work. It's very local. The language is Gallego, which is where I'm from. When I was a kid, I could not speak that language. I was born in a dictatorship. I could not speak Gallego. That's why I use my name Xavier, because in Spanish it will be Javier. At that time, I could not use my Galician name, and since then, I have been using my Galician name, which not any longer implies any political statement. That is the kind of the world that we've been living on, no? All that kind of contradictions. But here I am, so many years later, 30 years later, I go back, I make an exhibition, that is pop, and then I use the name in Gallego, and it's the name of a field that when I was a very, very little kid, I used to be in that field. And that field is called Behind the Fields. And behind the fields is where I've been all these years. That's why I photographed all over the world. So you see, there's a very, very clear intention of the work almost all the time. But that sense of place, displacement, elsewhere, is another consistency in the work. For instance, this is, you know, it's called Boy Brain Wave. And it has a story, you know, I mean, this is a boy, surrounded, a hunter. I think he's in Germany, the brain, and then the wave is an actual photograph of a sea wave in 1973, and then someone is attempt to create a harmonious, incomprehensible situation of three very, very different elements. Like the subjects, you know, where, you know, this landscape, this drawing, the ceramics, this ability of the flexibility of this materiality, is playful, is very fresh or innocent. It defines it as an object of, you know, so it's that nervousness that the piece wants to have. stay easy. Some of these images. So once again, so many years later, the heads appear. The beginning probably is very personal or very specific, but I do know that we live in a time, or have lived probably in a for very, very long, where meaning is very dispersed. The intention is questionable. I mean, it is what it is, and at least I know they have presence and they have demand on many different levels, and that is fine, it's good. I want that, maybe it's enough. It's never enough, I'm never satisfied with what I do really, but it works. And at times it's good to know that it works, so I can go home with something. This is a wall. I don't have the whole photograph. It's called Descriptions Without a Place, and that is a title or a name that very often appears in the work, and it somewhat maintains that maybe some of the pursuit, but also at the same time it's the title of my favorite poet, Wallace Stevens. So there is all kinds of connections that for me at least hold me, or give me content to keep going. Hungry for love, hungry for love. This is a phrase I saw on a window once, and it sounded, sort of becomes a digital print. So sometimes it is instantaneous, so it's quick, and then there are these other pieces which are more baroque or more, to my surprise, it's so ornamental, which I never intended, but here they are. And then you have to live with these contradictions in the work. That Jesus, what is this? And I like that kind of, I don't like it at all actually, but I found myself in that kind of ambiguity of being working at times, were very contradictory, actually, far away from my intention. But I love it. So there it is. So at times very, very complicated pieces and very baroque and very theatrical and festive. A lot of color, a lot of investigation of color and materiality and drawing and what to do with this ceramic which has always been with us, and how to maybe portray the material and what to do with it in a different way. And the opulence of color and material, after all, it's just clay, it's mad, and how I make it look like this composite of gold and silver and translucence and iridescence. So it's a little bit of the absurdity of the humor of being an artist, how to attend for meaning and at times, being so behind. I've been doing a series of couples, which are actually photographs. I've been showing many photographs, simple, very like that, couple, the embrace, the kiss, the hugging, so that kind of intimate, but in a very small object. Then just set up so groups. Again, the body, the landscape, the pot, the color, That's how I work, it's my studio. And then I have the full thing. So all this, I don't never make it at the same time. At times, having made a very different moments, and then they come together temporarily or forever. But I don't work on them at the same time. This is a series of gold clouds with handle. Couples. Very simple people, very small people. There's a photograph of couples in the art as photographed. The process is very obvious, so there are kind of crudity in the photograph, and the scanning, some of them. Couple of flowers. Couple with flower. This is my studio. It's a new series of very small pieces called Figures in the Shadows. We're in an exhibition recently. This is work, very recent work, back to my surprise, somewhat making reference to the history of the vessel or ceramic, or raw material, color, quick, very, very fast, very large, very large. So we have a very strong sort of metallic and physical presence. Yes, sir? No? Oh, no. So this is the other side of the piece. So the pieces are very complicated in terms of color and coloration. I'm fascinated once again with modeling and making something, modeling, arriving at something very fast, quickly. Has become again a very interesting time to be in the studio. It's very odd and very peculiar to me because what I actually do all the time is reading about economics and politics. And this is what I do in the studio. I'm not sure if it is to keep me healthy, it's probably sane. But it works, and I'm very happy with it. So some of that happiness or that joy, that possibility is wants to be in you. So the possibility that joy could be possible in this truth is very fascinating to me, and definitely is a mission. And there are all kinds of references in this box in ways. Pre-Columbian, definite painting, minimal abstraction, the pop, the primitive and archaic and modern, making. how to make sense, I mean, because it is about the senses, clearly. Or at least there's a trust that the senses and the physicality of the thing could become a way of, definitely for me, to keep me busy, but also to make sense of the world. That is the intention. So, I like color. Well, I like the possibilities of how color or materiality, material becoming color and emotion will play a role today. And there's an attempt to figure out how to be an artist today, which is a very complex matter, which I'm sure many of you are already dealing with it. What to do and how to do it, and how to then persist in being able to do what you want to do. And it's an extremely complicated matter. It has become very complicated because once you decide to have that kind of, let's say, journey, there are all kinds of structures that we need to know how to navigate. Economic, politics, curriculum. And that is what is to be an artist today. So it's gonna require extraordinary energy from all of us to keep this thing going. And some of us that we think is well worth it. Well, that's it. Some of us think that it is well worth it. And then you keep going.
Over here.
Yeah.
So, some of the artworks that you present look very chaotic almost,
Yeah.
but then the repetition and just the way your work is presented, and even the snapshot of your studio, looks very peaceful. The way you talk is very calm. You seem like a quiet, peaceful person.
No, I know peaceful or
So I guess I just wonder, what are some of these? What goes on in your mind in the studio? I would think it's really meditative, but
No, I think probably what it goes
you,
on. I know.
How's it like in the studio? Is it loud? Is it?
No, the studio is probably very much like it is when you go to the studio. Most of the time I don't know what to do. But I know I have to do something, and I believe in the idea that I definitely want to do something. But literally, more and more, I don't have to trust that I know how to do something, but because I know how to do something. I also know that if I start, I will arrive. You see, but I trust a lot more and more that I don't need to know all that. Not all the cards have to be on the table. I know what you're saying, that it sounds calm, but I know definitely this doesn't come from a calm place. Pretty much the other way around. I mean, I think the order, or let's say harmony, is a well-worthy assignment, but I'm very far away from it. And then after all, this is not me. This is an object, this is art. And I can look at it and I can talk with it, and it has nothing to do with me. And yet, I'm totally involved with it. So, it is art. So, as art, I can talk about it, and I've been talking about it. But of course, nevertheless, there is a biography and there is an insistence that, because now you see my work for 30 years, there is some sense of cohesion, or that it makes sense. But it not necessarily has to be possible. So that, I think the studio continues to be a place of great surprise or ambivalence and non-knowledge. And it is for me, and I will assume that it is for many of us.
Yeah, definitely.
So that chaos order formless form, yes, it is a consistent inquiry.
I think I heard you say that in 1983, around that time, there was a political event, and that was the reason that you started making the heads.
Yes.
So my question is, what was the event, and then why did you go on to make over 400 of them? Like, yeah.
Okay. The event, I don't necessarily say the event because it's immersed in the history, but it was the invasion of Grenada, which seems so absurd. I still think. So there is a sort of absurd, obnoxious situation at that point as well. So, but you see, once I say that, not necessarily correspond, but it did at that point, and it did for me. Why I made 400? Because I mean, I think that it's a number of things. One is that sense of persistence or insistence, but also is because I think repetition is something that appears and it's consistent in the history of ceramics. That it defines somewhat a modernity which I'm very intrigued with, that sense of obsession or labor, or I'm going to do it again and again and again. Somewhat, we at one point in modernity, we decided that it was not a good tool, but I think it's a very good tool, or it could be a very good tool, and it definitely is a very good tool to make you back to the studio, which I need to. I very often don't know what to do. So this is I'm going to do another one. So, because by doing that, playing tricks, we keep doing something. And very often I think that sense of commitment or engagement is powerful. And it's a trick. It has different possibilities. I think there are many, I think there are other layers involved in all of this, and I know. I think it's a good answer.
How do you usually fire your work?
How do I fire it? At times very quickly, and many others I've been firing many times. So there are pieces who were fired like 4 or 5 times. I know a lot about ceramics, firing, firing. So knowledge or skill, I have been very much part of it, although it does not necessarily appear, but I do. And I know a lot about firing with very sophisticated means and very simple means. So acquiring knowledge is, and it has always been very important. So firing is what it gives durability, but also, as you can see, my glazes and the way I glaze and the way I fire becomes part of that process of risk-taking, and I allow the glazes, chaotically do things for me. But that is knowledge, as much as intuition.
You had mentioned that for the couples
Can you
pieces
speak
that
a little louder? I don't hear very well.
you had said for the couples that they're
Yeah.
really small, but you mainly display them as photos. What's the scale relation of the
Yeah.
photo to the actual
The
object?
images, the objects, the ceramics are very small. Most of them are very quickly. Then I scan them with a very bad scanner. Very bad meaning very normal, non-sophisticated scanner. And then I print, and appears is the photograph what I usually use. So it goes through all these layers of process and what they are. But some of them later have become objects, so they are things as well. Is that not
But the actual print is like the same size as the actual.
Yeah, the photographs are slightly larger.
Alright.
They're about, I think they're 30.
Kind of dovetailing off that question, why do you choose to show them as the couples as photographs rather than as actual objects, since they're close to the same size in terms of like photo and object?
Yeah. I think that I became fascinated with the scanning. It's not so simple. And actually, it was by mistake that I discovered that I was playing with light, I think, in the drone, and I put it on the scanner, and suddenly that image became very strong to me. And also because the process became a little more complex. So now I have both possibilities, and they both are very different. One has that kind of dynamism, so immediacy, playfulness, or charm, and then this other one has to have this other possibilities, film, digital, etc. So it's that kind of realm of venues, the possibilities, which it gives content, maintains immediacy. Then it's also, it's just the image or the emotion is so simple. And that kind of simplicity, complexity tricks me. Yeah?
When you make these couples figures and scan them,
Yeah.
during the creation of them, do you know, like, during the process that you know that they're going to be made into a 2D image? I mean, do you kind of have this ambivalence, or is there an intention? Like, is there an uncertainty, like, where this is going, or do you know that it's going to be made into this image?
Well, they clearly are intentional. I mean, they are couples, and I know what that means. And I know what that means in the history of art. And actually, throughout history, we've been doing this, and I'm very aware of that. And I make an art of our art, but at the same time, it's based like that, emotionally and physically, as an object too. So it works at all these levels, and the photograph too, because the photograph are done very dramatic, this is a very black ground. The photographs that I show here, they are very full of imperfections, but I have others which I impeccably display as photographs. So it's a very dark ground, and then the image appears, and then it's an iconography that we've been using in film, literature, whatever. So I know I'm going to hit you somewhere, some way or another. I'm going to touch you, and that is intentional. I think that is intentional. I mean, how to engage you, how to intrigue you, how to maintain some kind of conversation. I know that you're going to go home with something. I'm going to give you that.
With your big pieces that are taller than a person, how do you hollow them out?
You hollow out the big pieces.
Yeah, they are made. Actually, they are quite thin. It's a wall which I build like this with coil. It's called coil.
Oh, so you don't have to hollow.
It's just yeah. Of course, the big ones I have to start quite thick, so they have stability and durability when they're fired, but they are not that big. I mean, they are not that heavy. It's just about this. So it's one of these forms. It's a form where skin and form are the same thing. It only takes a long time, but I go very fast. I work very, very quickly. So, which means that I work in 2 or 3 at the same time. Yeah? So again, this idea of the studio being a performance space, where I perform very with a particular mind and thinking many different things, and then something appears. And hopefully, what appears connects with all these intentions that are going on at the same time.
You mentioned that you were raised during a dictatorship in Spain, and
Yeah.
I was wondering if that affected your decision to become an artist.
Oh, dramatically. I mean, but also it's a different moment in history. I mean, this is let's see. I'm not sure if I can answer very dramatically now of something that at that time was experienced in a very different way. Inevitably now I'm going to conceptualize it, I'm going to try to disseminate it. But let's say that at that time, especially if you live in a dictatorship, modernity and art clearly for us, for me, was something that we was positioned. I mean, had a position. You are here and not here. So the good guys and the bad guys were very clearly established at that time. I know that at the time always had to come very, very complicated. So for me, being an artist is a way not to be different, or to be unique, or to be part of another understanding how to be in the world. Yes. I mean, as you can imagine, this is it could be very complicated, but essentially that's what it is. But also what happens when you live in a dictatorship, you learn to navigate at many different levels with authority, with power, because you have to. You are very young. So that was very my, let's say, beginning. And also the world was very different in the 1960s.
As an artist, do you find yourself working and not creating sometimes, or do you work to create, or do you just create something? Do you understand what I mean?
I think I do.
Okay,
But I'm not sure if I know how to understand. But
I hope it can.
no, I think I don't. I mean, ideally, we like to think that it's the same thing. But I probably isn't sometimes. But I'm not sure. I'm really not sure if it's not the same thing. It probably is. But at least let's say that I'd like to create conditions that what I do is creative. And I think you can say that. Doesn't matter what stage of creation you are. I think you can say that. And actually, you can say you can believe that. And you can say that from now on. And it's not true, I think it's valid. So then when you work, you are creative. When you're creative, it wasn't there before. So yeah, it works at that level. I'm not sure what you're saying if it has intention. And that is a little bit different.
In a way, is it kind of like when you say that over the years you've learned to trust that you will create?
Yes, that I think that's right. It's a learning process. Yeah, you learn. I learned how. Yeah. But also, I think it's commitment. You know, decision. I mean, you know, you have that. You choose to have that role in society, and it's undefinable somewhat. But nevertheless, the intention is there. And we all do it for different reasons. And at different times in our lives, that commitment or that decision is different. Or more conscious than others.
I believe it was in 1989 you said that you were part of a residency, correct? Like with the facility that had more innovative technology.
I found it.
Found it?
Yeah.
With that, how did you, I suppose,
simply because I think very different understandings of knowledge or different understandings how to do something. So I don't pretend to balance it. I think they both give me different ways of behaving or participating in the history of the world or what I do and how I do it. But I think it's possible. It's possible to participate at very different levels with energy or with technology and with knowledge. And I think we do it probably all the time. So that idea of discontinuity, meaning that at times you are very continuous in your knowledge, but I think that at times knowledge comes in a very unexpected and very discontinuous, and it has very little to do with the previous moment. So I'm very intrigued with that possibility, and it exists. I mean, scientists are talking about it, social studies are thinking about that possibility. Discontinuity. So, I'm not sure if I answered the question completely, but it is about that. I mean, I have a very strong attachment or knowledge of tradition, but I'm very familiar and very efficient with new technology.
I've noticed you use a lot of red, yellow, and metallic coloring in your work, and you mentioned...
I don't hear very well. Can you speak a little bit louder?
I said I noticed you use a lot of reds, yellow, and metallic in your work, and you mentioned before that colors show emotion. I was wanted to know what emotions are shown with those colors.
Yeah. Well, I don't think emotion is a color, but, definite. Let's say that emotional is very much part of, it's a partner, clearly. And I know how, I don't want to make use of it, but I know it's possible, and I intend it, and I want to make the work which implies my emotion, and hopefully leads you to it. And color it's just a, just material. It's just material. It's chemical. Put together, that's what we've been doing every time we investigate color. But it clearly is an intention to have an object that has emotional, as well, contains emotion as well as contains knowledge. Dispersion, power, competition. Am I answering your question? Then I'm not sure if I understood. I think I answered. But of course, that, as you can see, I choose, let's say that intentionally, there are colors which are insistently in the object, and they actually, they challenge the object very often. So I use, very, if a form appears very physical and very, with a very strong presence in terms of reference to pastoral history, and then the color somewhat disturbs all of that. So all that is part of being an artist, and the elaborations of being an artist and historian, and have seen a lot of art. I think that's what we do.
When you're making chaotic vessels and sculptures, I was wondering how that makes you feel while you're making them. Does it make you feel good, almost therapeutic to make those chaotic?
Well, I definitely like. I know what you're saying. I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's therapeutic, but definitely, I like to do at times very much what I do. And that's the incredible contrast. Yeah. Because I don't necessarily mean that neither they are happy, neither I'm happy with what I'm making. This is a little bit different. But yeah, I tend to have a a situation in the studio where a joy is possible. And it's another very, very simple. Very, very. This is and that is an accomplishment. I can assure you. But I do. I'm there now. Yeah.
Hi, I'm just wondering, what drove you to teach?
What? Say again?
What drove you to teach? Why did you decide to be a teacher?
Oh, I have to have a job. But also it's that, no, I think that's what it is. I mean, I don't think I decided to do it. I don't remember making that decision. Other than, you know, you get involved in society and you know, you apply, and things occur, and then we think we're going to do this, and we are doing this. I mean, life is very mysterious and very complicated. You know, someone in the last one was saying that I used to work in a bank. I used to work in a bank in London, and then so many years later, it was a gap for kids. I mean, explain that, you know, but that is how the world is today. So, you know, I laughed because of Franco, and now I'm talking to you here. I mean, this is so this is the theatrics that I think we are part of. But also it's because at one point you decide, I think that this is the world and I want to be in it. So you just become engaged and then all kinds of things start happening. Something like that. But I mean that idea of that's what we do. That's no, that's what we do. That's what we can do. Yeah? So, I did not decide to be a teacher. But it happened, and then of course you make decisions, and with that comes all kinds of responsibilities, and you know, you take another role, and it has all kinds of implications.
Were you making any work prior to the invasion of Granada? Like, during Franco's death, were you making any work then? Were you making any work prior to the invasion of Granada? Like, when Franco was dead in 75, were you making work then?
No, I was very young. I left Spain for the first time when I was 19. I was working in a bank. And I was very, very involved in military and underground politics. But at that time, it was a choice. And it was intentional. It's not like I'm going to be a politician or going to be a militant. It's what I did. We didn't have a name, really. You have a danger. You see what I mean? It's not a statement. It's a way of living. It's a way of being. I think also it's because, again, the history was very different. It was a very different moment in history. In the darkness, it was very dark, very complicated. It was more clear. Make sense? Yeah.
Well, I mean, it seems like you've moved around to many different cities, yet you're very prolific and you make very large work. What happens to all this work that you made over the years? Do you store it? Do you sell it? Do you give it away? It's this massive body of work. You say your studio is very small. I'm curious what happens with the work.
Yeah. It's complicated, because it's complicated because also I always work in urban environments, and as we know, that means money, and it's very expensive to do what I do, and it's very expensive because I occupy space, and I occupy space while I do it, while I in the process of arriving at something, and then what do you do with it? Because you have to go to either galleries, knock on the doors, or museums, and then you store. All that has to come back, transportation, insurance. So I think that is the complexity of how to be an artist, how to be very much a sculptor, how to be a sculptor of this material, which is fragile. So I don't know, you learn how to do it.
I mean, is the majority of the work sold?
This is not sold. There are some things which are sold, some, I have storages in 2 or 3 places. I have a big storage in Chicago, I have another one. A lot of the large work is in sadly, I found myself with a lot of work because I have a gallery in Spain and it's closed, it went bankrupt, so suddenly I have an enormous amount of work. Somewhat in limbo in between warehouses and deposits. I have a storage area in Chicago, so at times it doesn't make much sense, production or keep making. So you have to figure out the economic consequences, the space. And I spend periods of time without doing anything. I mean, I do that always. I've done that. Partly because I go from one place to another. But also this is the way I work. I mean, I spend periods of months without doing anything. I just walk or read or write. But then when I work, I work tremendously focused. And I can work for 3 months, 15 hours a day, and then stop. So that is actually accumulation all this stuff. You have to put it somewhere. And that is. But you learn how to pack, and you learn how to store, and you learn how to live with that kind of nomadic existence, and how you transport objects, and what you give away, what you sell, what becomes a commodity. When I have an exhibition, like in a gallery, right now I have an exhibition in Chicago in a gallery, and it's a very, very different exhibition than the exhibition that I had in an institution 3 years ago, because the parameters, conceptual and otherwise, are totally different. So certainly being an artist today means all that kind of complexity, or how to perform and be efficient in many different layers of meaning. So I wear many different hats. I'm a teacher, I'm a leader, I'm a organizer, I'm a craft person, and I conceptual artist, and a politician. I think that's probably how most of us are going to have to be, because this is the world is getting very, very complex, and it doesn't seem that it's going to get last. But you learn. And I think most of the time you learn when you don't have any other possibility but being in it.
Well, it seems like you're also a philosopher. Yeah. But I was wondering if I could invite students that would come and talk to you individually, just for
Sure.
Thank you so much.
If you want to see his work, it's going to be in the Perimeter Gallery in Chicago until at the end of December. So if you're in Chicago,
So please, we have 15 minutes for break. Come up and meet the